Hey guys, it's Stuart Tan for the Aurora Live channel. Welcome back. Today I want to touch on something called transgenerational trauma. What is it? Basically, the trauma that happened in a previous generation is now affecting the generation after. Why can this actually happen? Well, we have DNA processes. There's a genetic transference of information through the DNA helix. There is also epigenetic effects. So your parents or your grandparents were around you, and their attitudes and their behaviors rubbed off on you as a child, and perhaps even biochemical, because while you're inside the womb, anything that's happening that's affecting your mother is also affecting you. So here's the challenge. For most of us, we want to figure out how in the world do I get rid of it, let alone be even aware of it. Now let me cite you an illustration. My dad, for the life of him, had been extremely angry and sometimes morose. It was very seldom I saw him extremely happy. But once in a while, when I saw him joyful, I knew it was temporary. And it was an expectation that happened inside my head. So just as he was about to pass, he told me a story about how he was regularly victimized by his rich family members back in Indonesia, where he was born. And as a young child, before he even came over to Singapore, he had to work to please his so-called richer relatives, especially during the Chinese New Year. It's like every time you're going to get a red packet, you've got to clean the house or clean the drain or clean the car. So that gave me a sense of suddenly this feeling of absolute and overwhelming, betrayal, frustration, and also being victimized. And no wonder I had not realized where all my own personal sense of anger and betrayal and all that came from until this story came to light. And it was like an epiphany had hit me. So what I did was I spent some time mindfully tracing these threads. Of course, you can blame your ancestors all you want, but you are having that issue now, therefore you need ownership. So let's call it what it is, right? Call a spade a spade. If you're feeling frustrated, you are feeling it. And as a result of that, you need to find a way to cope with it and deal with it. So the first thing that you have to do, in my case, what I did is I was starting to look at the meaning behind it. Why in the world would I be endowed with this inheritance? What was I supposed to do with it? And I came to a realization that maybe, just maybe, because my ancestors couldn't deal with it, it is now up to me to find a solution. It's pretty much like a treasure map where my ancestors couldn't find the gold, and now the map is in my hands and I'm supposed to look for that gold. So I realized that as I continued on this journey, it was quite a painful one nonetheless. I've also come to a recognition that because I'm on this journey, the end result, the fruit of having dealt with things that my dad couldn't deal with, that my grandpa couldn't deal with, that laid on my shoulders, now that became worthwhile and something that is purposeful. So I came to realize that all this anger and frustration could be dealt with, and I had to cope with it in a variety of ways. So mindfulness was one of them. I started to trace the emotions. I started to do full body. Now mindfulness is very simple. If you take a 4-second on, 4-second off, 4-second on, 4-second off breathing pattern and begin to focus just on your breathing, that's exactly what you get. 4 seconds on, breathe in, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. And you find that you start to pay very close attention to your breathing. Now, the moment you're able to master that, it has some additional benefits. That is, if you have a nagging sense, a nagging emotion that comes up, it's easy for you to then take that and then meditate on that. So you take that urge to, eat a sweet dessert, even though you told yourself you've quit sugar, right? Close your eyes and you start breathing in and meditate on that. And inside your mind, you're beginning to understand why this is happening or how this is happening to you. Now, sometimes the answer is not very straightforward. It's not like someone comes up to you and starts saying, hey, this is the reason why it's happening. But what you can have or what you can derive out of it is a sense of understanding yourself better. It's like, oh, okay, I am craving for this. And you begin to just skim the surface of that and experience it for about 2 to 3 minutes maybe. And you find, for some strange reason, simply acknowledging that allows that feeling to go away. But sometimes those feelings come and go recursively on a regular basis. Like, for example, being triggered by interruptions. I was just interrupted by someone as I was doing this video halfway. And in the past, what would happen is I'll get really irritated that it had wasted my time. But I've come to realize that why in the world would I need to feel that way? And I traced it back, and my dad was actually quite impatient at times, especially with those of us at home. Professionally, he was awesome. Nobody saw this side of him on the outside. But at home, we started to learn all this impatience. So I started to sit with impatience and allow it to disappear. In fact, sometimes I still need to call upon impatience because I sometimes take things in too relaxed a fashion. So I call on impatience and that serves me. So transgenerationally, whatever you're feeling, you're not really trying to turn back the wheels of time, go into a time machine and travel back to the past. That's not what we're doing. We're attempting to let go. We're attempting to release. We're attempting to forgive, if there's a better word for that. So think about the things that may have been bugging you, and perhaps you find ironically that you are exactly like your dad or your grandpa or your grandma, whatever it is. You find that sometimes the things that you're so upset with or you feel so inadequate about is stuff that you've learned from them and you've not been able to let go. So by sitting down and attempting to go through a cycle of forgiveness, by sitting down, observing the pain, maybe you've got a shoulder ache, maybe you're constantly experiencing a pain in your back or pain in your neck, the pain in the neck. What does that mean? You don't know because you think, oh, I'll just take a painkiller and be done with it. No, it is a symptom of something much deeper. Sit down. Well, of course, it could be a symptom of just being in the wrong posture. But if you trace it down psychodynamically, you might find that part of it is as a result of you ignoring a lot of all these messages from your past. So what I tend to do is I want to look at those stories. I want to understand that a lot of the issues and cycles that I experience are just unresolved treasure maps that my ancestors have left for me. I have to dig, and the deeper I dig, the clearer it is that I get about myself. And as a result, I can celebrate the ownership of my own destiny. So leaving anger behind, leaving frustration behind, leaving resentment behind is one of the most amazing things that you can feel. One of the challenges many people have is forgiveness. It's like, how do I forgive someone who's caused me so much pain, especially if it's someone in a family environment? But the truth of the matter is you have to find ways to let it go. And sometimes, yes, you will get hit again by the same discomfort, the same anger, the same disillusionment. But you need to learn how to let those go as well too. And you find that the more you learn how to let it go, the easier it is for you to cope with those things over a period of time because they get less and less damaging in a sense. And then you begin to learn that on the other side of being hurt is empathy, that other people have faced a lot of pain before. And while you're undergoing your pain and you lift up this burden, you're also showing other people how to lift that burden. So in my experience, I think transgenerational trauma is something amazing. It is a door opener. It is something that enables an individual to really dive deep into the roots. Because let's just put it this way. You try harvesting diamonds on the surface, it's going to be really rare. But the deeper you dig, the more likely you're able to find diamonds, especially if you know that they're located in those areas. Your suffering may not be your suffering, but it doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. You need to therefore accept responsibility for yourself and then utilize that opportunity to grow, to learn, to master yourself beyond what you thought yourself was. In fact, sometimes these transgenerational traumas are handed down to us so that we can become better. That it is like the whetstone for our own knife of destiny. We want to be able to sharpen our edge so that we can cut through any trouble, any struggle that's happening to us. So if you have faced some difficulty, here's something I'd like you to do. Take that emotion, sit down with it, and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Who do I know modeled this for me? Where can I trace this in terms of my earliest memory of it? And sometimes if you do this under hypnosis, you'll find that you might be able to trace it way past your current lifetime. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're going like, that's nuts, that's crazy talk. Well, the truth is, I've done that many times. Everything is merely a representation inside your mind. And sometimes the representation is more important than the fact. So, yeah, your past life, some people agree that there is a past life. I tend to believe that as long as the representation is useful for you, it's going to be useful for you. So take a look at yourself. Begin to trace that experience. Where did you feel this? Why did you feel this? When did you feel this? Sit down and then begin to ask yourself, do I need this? What is this for? What is it attempting to serve me for? And a lot of the time, for example, anger serves a purpose. Anger is a protection mechanism. Anger is a loss coping mechanism. Fear is a protection mechanism. It is the ultimate loss coping mechanism as well. Sometimes fear is also an inadequacy radar. So you find yourself being inadequate about something, you might end up becoming very, very fearful. So as you're experiencing these feelings of a certain moment in time, you've then got to ask yourself, where have these patterns repeated in my life? As you think about these repeated patterns, you will come to recognize that, oh my goodness, this actually has happened to me before. But unfortunately, the more it accumulates and it becomes a cycle, it becomes habitual, doesn't it? And if you just keep ignoring it, this habit is just going to grow into character. So that's why people say, oh, he's just an angry person, rather than, oh, he's having an anger episode. And I believe that we have anger episodes rather than being angry. And if we learn how to be a person who can discern that, we'll have freedom from our anger, from any negative emotion. That, however, is not to say that we don't embrace the value of that, because it was, in a sense, an emotional point on your psychological radar that helped you to find it. And that is a signal from your unconscious mind. I'd strongly suggest that you sit down and do a bit of discernment work on this. So sit down, ask yourself these questions. What am I feeling? Where have I seen this before? Who taught this to me? Where did I learn this from? When was the first time I experienced this? What does it serve me? And how do I value this so that I can let it go? So my friends, I know sometimes we've been inundated with a lot of negativity. Sometimes it is not really your fault. However, you need to claim responsibility and ownership, because that will set you free. So, did you learn anything from that video? If you did, just give it a thumbs up and then click on the subscribe button and hit the notifications icon so that you and I will continue to stay in touch and I can provide you with updates whenever we have new videos.